Joker, Folie Deux. It is Folie Deux, right? I don't know. Joker Folie Deux or Joker 2, whatever you want to call it, is a sequel to Joker, which came out in like 2019 or something like that. An Elseworld movie. It once again is directed by Todd Phillips, and it stars Joaquin Phoenix. It stars Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. Best way I can set up the story for this one is that Joker is in Arkham. He is currently serving time for the crimes that he committed in the first movie, and he is put on trial for those crimes in this movie, but along the pathway to that, he also meets an inmate named Harley Quinn, or I think in the movie they call her Lee. So a romance begins between Arthur Fleck and Lee, and that is the backdrop for also this big trial that is supposed to sentence him and put him away and bring him to task for the murders that he committed in the first Joker movie. I've seen so many people have different things to say about this movie, and every single thing feels like it's kind of accurate. I've seen people say, I actually really enjoyed the movie. I really dug it. I thought it was different. I thought it was ambitious. I thought it was cool. Like, yeah, I could sort of see that. You got other people saying that, like, it's dog shit, it's terrible, it's like one of the worst movies that they've ever seen in their life, and I'm like, okay, I don't agree, but I sort of see what you're saying. I'm not gonna get hyperbolic with the thing. I don't think this movie is as bad or as awful as some people have said. That being said, I was not a huge fan of the movie, and we will get into more of that later on. But this is the positive vibe section of the video, and we're gonna talk about the positive things I liked. Joker Folie Deux is a really beautiful looking movie in terms of the cinematography, the lighting, the color grading, everything that goes into making great shots. This movie has it. This movie, despite taking place really in only 2 locations, has elite art design. I like the way all of the shots are blocked and the way that they're set up. This movie also has a very dreamlike and immersive shot quality that really brings you into the picture, brings you into the scene, makes you feel like you're sitting there vibing as a fly on the wall. Also a really great long take. Like, you can just tell there are talented people working on this movie behind the camera, and I do have to point that out for the review. Also, the music. The music is pretty good. Not the song choices for like the musical stuff. Like I said, we'll get to that later. I thought the score was one of the best things about the first Joker movie. It served as like its own character, and I do feel like the musical score brings back a lot of those cues and a lot of those themes for this movie. Joaquin Phoenix, I don't know if he's ever given a bad performance in his life. I don't even know if he's capable of it. He is fantastic here. He is definitely just as committed, just as immersed in this role and in this character as he was in the first movie. Lady Gaga, I know some people don't know this, but she's actually an extremely talented actress. She definitely brings her own style, her own flair to the character of Harley. It may not be the Harley that you're used to or that you really like to see, but I do like some of the different things that she brought. Brendan Gleeson also is in this movie, and he's great too. He's not in the movie that much. He just kind of shows up every now and then, but when he's on screen, you're like, yeah, Banshees of Inisherin, that's my guy. And I'll also say that this movie has the premise and the setup and the idea of great court scenes. That's not really how it plays out in the movie, but there is one great court scene that takes place in this movie. I'm not gonna say what happens or like give you details, but it is easily the most emotional and the most intense scene in the entire film. You'll know it when you see it, trust me on that one. Fortunately, we've reached the end of the positive section of the video. Now that we've got the positive shit out of the way, we can now focus on negativity. Yeah, we can focus on hatred, anger, darkness, death. Well, okay, not death. We're not doing all that. The first thing I have to address is the musical part of the movie. I don't know if you guys knew this going in. It feels like a lot of people didn't know this. They did say years ago that this movie was a musical, and then the press run leading up to the movie, they were like, well, it's not really a musical. It's just a way for them to express thoughts in their heads using music, which 99% of the rest of us was like, yeah, that sounds like a musical. So what are we doing here? Usually when it comes to musicals, you'd like the song choices to be good, you'd like the performances to be good, you'd like it to add something to the characters or to the narrative. The music in this movie doesn't really add anything. It just is just a bunch of random scenes of Arthur and Lee just kind of singing to each other. I gotta tell you, that got old after a while. It's just nothing but repetitive scenes of them singing to each other. They're also singing covers for songs that we've already heard before. The characters are literally just singing exactly what we already know is on their mind, and it doesn't change anything about the story. It kind of feels like if you take out the musical scenes, I don't think anything about the movie changes, and honestly, you're probably a little bit less annoyed by the end of it. There's just no getting around it. This movie is a lot more boring than the first Joker movie was. It's definitely a lot more poorly paced, and I think a lot of that has to do with the structure of the story and how they're trying to do a lot of different things. This movie feels like tonally and schematically, it's trying to be a lot of different movies all at once. It's trying to be a direct sequel to the first Joker movie. It's also trying to be a Joker and Harley Quinn movie, which which it doesn't really follow through on. It's also trying to be a musical, which again, I already pointed out is kind of annoying and repetitive and doesn't add anything. And then it's also trying to be a big court drama, like the trial of the Joker. Like that's what the movie's trying to pitch you on. And even that shit, other than like one scene, doesn't really hold your attention and doesn't really follow through on the premise. A lot of the scenes in the courtroom are just extra scenes where they're rehashing a lot of character tropes or character arcs or story beats from the first movie. It's just kind of repeating the same information, bringing old characters in that shouldn't have the information they have, but they're gonna repeat it anyway. This movie feels like a lot of different movies competing for attention, and as a result, it feels like it doesn't have that focus. It feels very uninspired and very uneven. Also, in regards to what this movie's narrative is and how it's trying to pull it off, it does feel like it undermines the first movie. It doesn't just undermine it, it cuts the fucking knees off of the first movie, which again might be the point. I suppose that's fair, but it also feels like a lot of contradictory information. The way that this movie tries to destroy and undo everything that the first movie did, even though you saw the first movie and you remember it clearly, it just makes you wonder like why they even called this movie Joker. Like why did they decide to make this a Joker duology? Like why couldn't they have called these movies Arthur or the Clown or something like that? Them calling it Joker and then being so ashamed of doing Joker shit for the movies feels like a giant slap in the face to the audience. And again, maybe that was their point. That doesn't mean that their point is going to be entertaining or fun to sit through. It just kind of makes you feel irritated by the end. There is also an ending here, and I'm not going to spoil what happens, but holy shit. It's a bad ending. It doesn't stick the landing on multiple fronts. It goes in a direction that it did not need to go in. But would I watch this movie again? No, I probably would watch it just for like the cinematography, but then I would keep it on mute. Like it'd be a good screensaver type of movie. I just don't want to listen to the music anymore, and I don't want to sit through the boring parts of the movie, and I don't want to be reminded that the first movie is just infinitely superior. The end, Joker Folie Deux is not a bad, well, okay, it's kind of bad, but it's not like awful. It's not like historically bad like some people are saying, but it is a giant disappointment. Joker Folie Deux is not that good a movie, and I'm gonna leave this one in Smallville. For the uninitiated, Smallville is the guilty pleasure section of my channel. Welcome to it. Tell me, have you seen the Joker? You probably haven't. You probably shouldn't. The Wild Robot or Transformers 1. Tell me which one you preferred of those two movies. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel. Stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.